My brothers and sisters in Christ, in the parables of the last few days, we've heard Jesus speak not only of the sower, who is God, sowing his word, giving all the grace that is necessary, but also the way in which different things can get in the way of fruitfulness. And in today's gospel, this narrative of the beheading of John the Baptist, we see in the figure of Herod a perfect, neat little package of what happens in worldliness, of the corruption of sin. Herod here, who is someone that is entrusted, should work for the common good of his people, already is a corrupt ruler. He's quite a silly and, in fact, a bit of a buffoon for those who know their history. But in the scene here with John the Baptist, we see that already he's captured by lust in the first fact. There's these questions of unlawful marriage. Then we have the fact that he is fearful of John the Baptist. He's fearful of what others think, which is why he won't act. Then his judgment quickly goes out the window. He's imprudent because his lusts flare up when the dance is done before him, so he makes promises he shouldn't. Then he's distressed when the promise is asked for him to do something vile, to behead John the Baptist. But because of his vanity and peer pressure, he gives in anyways, has John the Baptist beheaded and sent off. And so, in quick order, in this very simple narrative, we hear kind of the way sin corrupts and leads people astray. God had not denied Herod the graces necessary, nor does he deny any of us. But when we look around, and not just judging others of various forms of debauchery or going astray, but the way that we ourselves are compromised. One sin leads to another sin, which leads to another sin, and suddenly, unchecked, we just become a mess. And so, Herod stands as not just a villain in the scriptures, and not just as a type of what to avoid, of the worldly sinful man, but a warning. As held up next to John the Baptist and his great humility, I must decrease so that he might increase, as John says of Jesus. And of course, not just next to Jesus, who Jesus stays silent and takes the insults and the mockery of Herod and others during the time of his passion, but Herod himself is a warning of what can happen. Going back to the parable of the sower, when the seed is sent, and if the soil is shallow and not tended, if it's choked thick with many thorns, if we let our passions run wild, if we don't train ourselves in the way of virtue, then quickly things will choke the seed out, and it will not be fruitful. But instead, to those who have ears to hear, as Jesus has constantly presented in all of these teachings, in fact, his grace is made available to us to choose a different way, to train ourselves in virtue. Virtue literally being acquired habits. They're holy habits, if you will. And so those uproot the vices. When we focus, even if it's one at a time, and developing a virtue, opposing a particular vice, it can be rooted out of our lives. And each virtue that is honed, that is trained, affects the other vices around. And we find ourselves growing in virtue, seeing the world through a different lens. And that we find the things that God presents to us more pleasing than the empty promises of the world. May we not fall into the trap of the Herods of the world, but may we truly hear the word of the sower. May we receive it joyfully and bear fruit abundantly. May God bless you.